And it's time to go out west once again on the OFN today on a Monday, the Monday of kickoff week 2023 in the NFL. And just double checking, yes, this is our last NFC team preview for the regular season. And Corbin Smith has been gracious enough in his busy schedule to join us once again talking Seattle Seahawks football. How's it going, Corbin?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's always great to talk Seattle Seahawks football. Kind of have a soft spot for the team ever since the changeover, really, with Pete Carroll and Schneider and the organization and the winning. And really, if you look at it, what do they now have overall winning seasons, 10 of the last 11 years. This is Pete Carroll's, 14th year, I believe. Same thing for Schneider. I'm not sure there's a tandem like that in the NFL. Is there?
I think they're the only ones that have survived that long. It just doesn't happen, especially with two quarterbacks that play at a high level. Like, that just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Same GM, same head coach.
And a Super Bowl. There is a change on the staff. A new offensive coordinator, correct? Greg Olsen?
Well, Greg Olson's the quarterback coach. They
quarterback
still got
coach.
Shane Waldron as the OC. This will be his third year with the team. So Olsen is the replacement for Dave Canales, who left to be the OC at Tampa Bay.
Okay. And other than that, Smith, Carl Smith, Waldron, she mentioned, they've been together for, this is going to be year 3 together. Clint Hurt, his second year. I think it's at the point too now where, all right, now you're developing your systems, second, third year kind of deal. And of course, Gino was able to break out. Everybody's wondering, is that going to continue? Okay, well, whatever. I'm sure it will. But what I really liked about this offseason and after coming off the year that they had was the draft and the offseason in general. I thought that they had high grades, and as we go through this roster and the depth chart, we're gonna. I got a lot of questions to ask you regarding how a lot of these rookies have fared and key free agents during camp. Before I do that, though, I want to pop up your. Oh, I don't want to block your face there. There you go. This is your Twitter account. Locked On Seahawks Podcast. You can see that on the account. And are you still doing that 6 days a week, Corbin?
Yeah. During the season, we do 6 days a week. It's 5 days a week in the off season. So we're podcasting all the time, all year round. So
that's awesome. And of course, all Seahawks. So all you got to do is you just click that. You go to the All Seahawks, or of course you can go to si.com and on the ticker. And by the way, of course, you can see it on the ticker, but we'll have, as usual, while you're watching this, you can go down to go down to the description area, click more, and you'll see the links there for Corbin, the podcast, si.com.
And you can see the newest article that I just had published literally 5 minutes ago as well. So
there it is. Seahawks building contender with familiar playbook. I love it. So good timing. And again, that's at Sports Illustrated. And the description link will be right there for you. All right, now let's take a look at the depth chart this is the ourlads.com depth chart. We'll start on offense. And so, how's everything looking? Once again, the difference that you've seen from last year's camp to this year's camp for Gino.
He just looks like he is even more confident and in greater command of the offense. And this is what people forget. Geno Smith, going into this year, this will be the first time that he has had the same offensive coordinator as a starting quarterback for consecutive seasons. He never got that luxury when he was in New York early in his career. Obviously had that long hiatus where he wasn't a starter. So this has been a long time coming where he has not had continuity. He has that continuity now. So he and Shane Waldron should be able to just take another step forward here. I think Greg Olsen is the quarterback coach. Dave Canales did a fantastic job, but Greg Olsen, he made Josh Freeman a Pro Bowler. I mean, that's enough said right there. You put him with Geno Smith, the way Geno played last year, I think that he's going to bring some new elements in the coaching staff that can help Geno elevate his game even further. I thought he had a fantastic training camp, especially throwing to his new guy, Jackson Smith and Jigba, who they are hoping will be available in week one. The fact that he's practicing a little over a week after he had wrist surgery, I think is a pretty good sign that he is going to be available. But Geno's got so many weapons. He's got a couple stud running backs behind him. I think the offensive line is going to be significantly better than it was last year. All of those things combined with the fact that he just looks like he is even more confident. He's in greater command. He continues to emerge as more of a leader for this football team that his teammates respect. And you put all that together, I just think last year, everybody's going to be looking at it as just a stepping stone for what Geno Smith's going to do. And I still can't believe I'm saying that now, more than a year after a lot of people thought Drew Lock was going to win that starting job. Geno Smith has been a revelation, and I think it's going to continue into this season because of what they have done to his supporting cast.
Yeah, there were a lot of doubters even after the season thinking, well, they've got the draft capital. They're going to take one of those young quarterbacks. They're not going to trust Geno. I mean, that's just, come on. What happens if he goes back to being just the old Geno? But they've stuck with him as well as they should have. And then, like you said, this offense, and I'm just surprised that a lot of people out there just seem to be just dismissing Seattle. Almost like, that was just a fluke what they did last year. And, they really haven't been relevant for the past several years, and that's going to continue. But the weapons now, talk about Smith and Jigba, because obviously Metcalf and Lockett, they're two studs out there. But it's just really all about staying healthy for this kid, isn't it? I mean, that's the thing, is this kid stays healthy, and that you might not find a better threesome in the entire league.
No, and he is the perfect complement that they have been looking for. They thought D. Eskridge was going to be that guy. And Eskridge was having a great training camp before the news broke that he was going to be suspended the first 6 games. Okay. And then he injured his knee in the first preseason game, literally the first play in kick coverage. So we won't see him till week 8 at the earliest, and who knows what's going to happen at that point. But Jackson Smith and Jigba's ability to win in the middle of the field, out of the slot, he's a crafty route runner. He excels at making contested catches. And even though he's not the fastest guy, he's got great acceleration and change of direction skills, like elite change of direction skills. So this is a guy that can get the football in his hands and quickly accelerate out of his breaks, make yardage after the catch. He can win downfield. I think that it's a part of his game people don't respect enough. That's not the biggest strength, but he can win downfield. And you have a guy like that can just destroy defenses in the middle of the field. How much pressure that puts on the defensive coordinator trying to figure out, okay, how do I slow him down when I've got DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett on the outside? I can't double team those guys consistently anymore. Yeah. What am I going to do? And so this is the type of receiver they've been looking for the last 4 or 5 years that can truly be that complementary weapon that also can take over games. If he's healthy with the other 2 guys, I don't know that there is a threesome in the NFL at the receiver position that is better than this group.
And this is also, you would think, again, health-wise, as long as Noah Fant can have a healthy season, this is going to be his best chance, really. Because I don't know. I mean, do you think we've seen the best of Noah Fant? That, he's a good player, but he's never going to live up to the hype. It's just not going to happen. He's not that player. Or do you think that there's that extra gear that if he stays healthy with this offense, that this could be his best year?
I'm going to say no statistically, because I just don't know how he's going to get many targets, because if you've got Jackson Smith and Jigba, Metcalf and Lockett, and I actually think the highest upside tight end in this receiving room is Colby Parkinson at 6'7", with his ability to run the soft hands, the red zone threat that he presents. I just don't know there's going to be a lot of footballs available to be thrown to these tight ends. I think it's a really solid group, and I think Noah Fant is a solid football player. I just don't know that you're going to see the production necessarily go up because of the weapons that they have at the receiver position and the fact that I think they're going to be able to run the football better than what they did last year. So I think from a statistical standpoint, no. That doesn't mean that we won't see an improved season where he's still dangerous when he gets his opportunities. I think he's a really solid football player. I just don't know. There's one football to go around. I don't know that these tight ends are going to get as many opportunities to make plays in the passing game. Maybe they do because those receivers are attracting so much attention, but I think it's going to be difficult at times for that group to really get volume in terms of the passing game.
And let's talk about, because I'm really intrigued by some of the young backups. And of course, you mentioned Eskridge, one of them. So you've got this Jake Bobo kid who had a tremendous
More
preseason.
Bobo.
And then also Cody Thompson, who's been on the practice squad, since 2020. So maybe is this finally going to be the year that he's going to play all season on the team? And then you got the kid from the 7th round last year. What about these three guys? Are these three? Do you think these are just guys, or is there something about one or a couple of them that we should be a little bit, locked in on and just don't dismiss them?
This is how far that I've come in terms of jumping on the Jake Bobo train. Before their preseason finale, I was arguing that they should put him in bubble wrap and not play him.
Wow.
Because I thought he had made the team. And I went into training camp with an open mind because this is a guy that ran, and he has admitted to it. Like, he ran a 4.99 40. Like, this is not a burner by any means. Now, he looks faster than that on the field. He looks like probably a 4.7 guy. And at 6'4", with the route running skills, the football IQ that he has, and the really strong hands, this dude wins contested catches like it's his job. And so there's a lot of things that stood out, but I wanted to see, does it carry over from OTAs,
Sure.
which is just the underwear Olympics? Is it going to carry over to preseason games and training camp? And he exceeded all expectations for me. And the fact that Geno Smith was targeting him in a clutch situation in their mock scrimmage in the red zone, that spoke volumes to me. Geno Smith trusts this kid. Drew Lock was going to him often. So Jake Bobo, I'm all in now on the more Bobo movement. Like, I have a feeling, especially if Jackson Smith and Jigba misses a game or two to start the season, that he's going to put up some decent numbers as that number 3 receiver. And as the number 4 guy, he's got a chance to be one of those sleepers to watch just because of his size and the fact that I don't know how he does it, but he gets open all the time. The guy creates separation. You wouldn't expect a player with his limited athleticism to be able to do that, but he does. And part of it's because he's just such a savvy route runner, and he knows what defenses are doing. As for Thompson and Tariq Young, I still think there's a chance one or both those players start the season on injured reserve. They haven't made those moves yet, but Thompson's been dealing with a shoulder issue. Tariq Young's been battling a hip injury since middle of camp. He came back for a week, and then it still wasn't right. So we'll see. The fact they haven't done it yet maybe suggests they still think there's a chance they'll have them available in the first couple of games, but they're banged up right now. So as far as immediate returns, I don't know if we'll see anything. Tariq Young is still the one that has the incredible upside at 6'3", 228 with 4.4 speed. He's just still rounding into form as a receiver. That he's an unpolished player, whereas Jake Bobo, he's not the athlete, but he is a very polished route runner that has a lot of the polish you're looking for at the receiver position.
Well, Young came from what, Division II?
Yep, so, Lenore Ryan.
Yeah, so that's going to take time. Maybe
even
more than
he did some great things from last year, Greg. He played fullback for a few snaps and then blew a guy up at linebacker. So you can do a lot of fun stuff with him. He's a great special teams player. He's just got to get healthy. And if they can get him healthy, he's going to factor in. I don't know he's going to get a lot of catches, but he's a guy that's going to make plays on special teams, and he can do some stuff that some of these other receivers can't, like lining up at fullback and playing back there.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of guys. I mean, the team looks relatively healthy. No major injuries yet, which is great. But let's just say that the wide receiver room, and maybe it does sound like, and we haven't gotten to the other positions. It sounds like maybe this is the one spot on the team that has some major, maybe some little minor injury concerns. That if something were to happen to Smith and Jigba for a game or two, and you mentioned the other two guys, and Bobo has to step up, that they're just one other injury away. That now we've got some concerns maybe. And if that's the case, do they have somebody on the practice squad that they immediately turn to?
Yeah, and here's the thing, Greg. They've got a couple of guys in their practice squad that could play for a number of teams, I think, in the NFL. But there's such a saturation at receiver that you're able to release guys and not have to worry about them getting picked up off waivers because there's such a surplus of talent at that position. But Cade Johnson had 6 catches their last 2 games last year, including 3 catches against the 49ers in the wild card loss. So Geno Smith trusts him. They played together a lot 2 years ago when Russell was still the starting quarterback. Those two were playing on the scout team, so they have good chemistry. Aesop Winston had a really solid preseason, and they also have an undrafted rookie, Matt Landers, who is the polar opposite of Jake Bobo. He is not a polished route runner. He has a pretty small route tree, but the stuff that he does, the couple tricks he has up his sleeve, he's very good at. He's 6'4", ran a 4.37 40 coming out of Arkansas, averaged 20 yards per catch last year in the SEC. He is a big play threat. So all three of those guys could be players they could turn to as practice squad promotions that I think the Seahawks would be more than comfortable throwing them out there, and I think Geno Smith would be more than comfortable throwing the football to them.
All right. Now in the backfield, you don't have to sell me on Charbonneau. A big Charbonneau fan. I'm a Michigan fan, and I was really surprised how he exploded at UCLA because we didn't see that at Michigan. But maybe it's just, he got out at maybe at the right time or the wrong time, but the right time for him. Because Michigan was running a completely different offense at the time. And then he just explodes. Of course, we all know that the last couple of years. And they bring him in, which is just the perfect. I mean, look at that backfield now of second-round draft picks from the last two. And I mean, 1-2 year backs. This is, I think these two guys might be the best 1-2 because you look at Atlanta and they have Algier and they've got Robinson, but I love this Walker Charbonneau combo that at this stage in their careers, this is just going to be an awesome ride watching these two guys play. So much so that I picked them both up in my Dynasty League draft. We started a Dynasty League this year. Just finished our draft a couple of weeks ago with Draft Sharks. So I've got some tough owners I have to compete with, but those are two guys that are on my team.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be a really fun backfield tandem as long as they can keep them healthy. But even behind those guys, DJ Dallas played well last year when he got thrown into action, and he's a good special teams player. And Kenny McIntosh, I had a third-round grade on him. And the fact the Seahawks got him in the 7th round, he's been hurt for most of training camp, tweaking his knee in their mock scrimmage, but it sounds like he's going to be ready for the season opener. He's a guy that gives a lot of third down versatility as an outstanding receiver out of the backfield. He can play out of the slot, so you can do some stuff with him formation-wise. I think top to bottom, that's as good of a running back group as you're going to find. I still think this is Ken Walker III's backfield, though. Charbonnet is going to be a really fun complementary piece, and I think where he could hurt Walker is in red zone situations because he's more of a between the tackles downhill runner. I think he's better equipped for those short yard situations. So in fantasy terms, he might be a little bit of a touchdown vulture for Ken Walker III, but I still expect Walker is going to be the main catalyst in that backfield, and I would not be surprised if he's able to hit or eclipse his numbers from a year ago, even with the presence of Zach Charbonnet. I think that better offensive line in front is certainly going to help too.
Yeah, because I actually picked him up. I only have 2 fantasy leagues, my year-to-year one, which I just did yesterday, and I picked him up in my Walker in my year-to-year one because I got him. I forget what round it might have been. It might have been 3rd round, I think, and I just think that he's. I don't know. I don't understand why he's not being. Why people aren't more excited about what they saw from him last year and what they. It was a Heisman guy. I don't understand. Maybe they think because there's a little banged up stuff here and there. Maybe like you said, Charbonnet is going to take his touchdowns away from him. But this kid, we saw him last year. I saw him. I picked him on my team last year, my 1-year team. And I thought, just keep this kid healthy, even if for 15 out of 17 games. And he's going to have an awesome season and an awesome career. I just think I don't understand why he's not being respected as much as he should be.
Yeah, I think some of it is just the fact that, with the analytics that are out there, he took a lot of negative plays. And he is kind of one of those feast or famine runners. But when he feasts, though, he's as dynamic as any back in the league. And he hit a bunch of home runs last year. And I did notice as the season went on, it felt like he was more decisive getting downhill instead of trying to dance around and make plays in the backfield and getting stuffed back there too often. It seemed like he started to take what the defense was giving him a little bit more. And I think that is going to be a game changer if he's able to do that consistently, because you don't want to completely take away the improbability because he's so good at it. But you also don't want 2nd and 12, 2nd and 13 all the time because your running back didn't take the yard or two that was there. So I know that's something that Pete Carroll and company were really pressing hard on. But in terms of the big playability, he's as elite as any running back in the NFL. And I think Charbonnet has more ability in that regard than some people realize. I mean, he can hit you some home runs too.
Yep.
He's not going to hit a 70-yarder like we saw Ken Walker do last year, but he's a guy that can pick up big chunks of yards, and he can bowl people over, really soft hands in the backfield. Again, you keep those two healthy, I feel like that duo has a chance to be a special one for the Seahawks.
And you mentioned the offensive line. No reason to think it's not going to get better when you have the two rookies out there at tackle last year. They both played well as rookies. So the offensive line, to me, looks like this might be the best line they've had in years.
I think it has the potential to be as good as the offensive line they had from their Super Bowl year in 2013. To me, that's probably the best offensive line that they've had under Pete Carroll. And then they lost some guys. They went cheap there, and then things kind of unraveled a little bit with the offensive line. And that's really been a constant theme. But Evan Brown, I thought Oluwatimi was going to win that job, the center out of Michigan. I thought he was going to win it, and Evan Brown pretty much shut that up early. And he has been fantastic. And you look at the film the last 2 years, Greg, in Detroit, when he played guard last year, he wasn't near as effective, but he told reporters this last week, he is a center that can play guard. Center is his natural position, and he played really well there in 13 starts for the Lions over the last 2 years. In 2021, he gave up 8 pressures total in pass protection in 12 starts at center. So they like what they've seen from him. He had some really nice run blocks and limited snaps in the preseason. One of them busted Charbonnet for a 29-yard run. So he was able to run with that competition and take it. So he's got a chance to maybe be the long-term guy. They've been playing musical chairs there for the last half decade. He's on a 1-year contract, but he's only 26. So if he's able to come in and play really well, I think he's going to be a major upgrade over Austin Blythe, who just struggled in the run game. He just didn't have enough pop to win at the line of scrimmage. Evan Brown does, and he's also a really solid pass protector. So I think that's a game changer. And Phil Haynes at right guard, the Seahawks were better last year when he was the one in the lineup, not Gabe Jackson. It was just Jackson reached the end of the line. He just too many knee issues, just wasn't the same player. They were a better offense with Phil Haynes out there. They went 3-0 in the games he started and averaged almost 120 rushing yards per game. So this is his first chance to be a starter in his 5th year. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for him to step into the lineup and make this line that much better.
Okay. So an underrated player then, sounds to me.
He's just got to stay healthy. That's been the biggest issue for Phil Haynes.
Okay. And Damian Lewis, is he just going to keep getting better?
That would be my anticipation, and he's now the elder statesman of this offensive line going into year 4.
Wow.
I mean, it's a very young line, and maybe that's the one caveat. But as I wrote in my article today, I mean, if there's a coach that has had success with young football teams, it is Pete Carroll, and he is fired up about it, and that includes with the offensive line.
And the 2 rookies you mentioned, Oluwatimi from Michigan, but also Bradford. So they have 2 really key rookies that they added to the line as well. Like you said, after what happened last time, I'm sure Schneider and Cowell were like, nope, we're not going to let that happen again. We're going to make sure we have this line going, starters and reserves.
Greg, they have gone away from when they had Tom Cable in the offensive line coaching position. They were trying to outsmart everybody. They were bringing in these athletic guys that were defensive tackles and moving them to offensive line. And it worked with J.R. Sweezy, but every other time they tried it, it blew up in their face. And then the guys they signed in free agency were not established long-term stars. Like, it just kept blowing up in their face.
Yeah.
They have gone back to the basics. We're going to get ourselves really good football players.
Sure.
That's what we're going to do. And so you saw that with Cross and Lucas last year. And this year, Oluwatimi and Bradford, I think, are long-term starters for them. But they had a great situation because they had 2 young guys that were veterans that were competing. It wasn't a 30-plus-year-old competing against a rookie. Like, they had 2 guys in Haynes and Brown who, hey, if you play well, you could still be long-term starters for us. That created a great situation for them.
Yeah, matter of fact, Jeff Risdon covers the Lions, comes on talking about Detroit as often as I can get him on. We talked about Brown, and he was high on Brown as somebody that it was just a matter of, look, they already had a center, and there was nowhere for him to go. So not a surprise that he ended up beating out Oluwatimi for now. All right, let's talk about the defense. And here are some changes. So all 3 starting linemen free agents? Is that what we're seeing? And if I'm looking at the depth chart here, I see that they got the 2 draft picks. So if we're just talking the defensive line, that's 3 free agents and 2 rookies out of the 6.
Miles Adams is the one returning player. Now, Jaron Reed played his first 5 years in Seattle.
Yes.
So
yes.
He's a newcomer, and yet he's not. It's similar to Bobby Wagner at linebacker. Like, he came in seamlessly. He knows the defense. He knows what's expected. The coaches know what to expect of him. And he's been crucial to trying to get this defensive line back to where the Seahawks expected to be. They finished 30th in run defense last year. And at the end of the season, Pete Carroll said, we need to get more dynamic. And he followed up his words. John Schneider followed up those words. They aggressively retooled this line, and they actually spent big bucks in free agency. That is not something they normally do, but they went out, aggressively got Draymond Jones to get a player in the prime of his career, said, we're going to pay you big bucks. You're going to be a game changer for us. We're going to bring back Jaron Reed. And Mario Edwards came in May. He was a late signing on a cheap one-year deal, but he has good film from Tennessee last year. And what's his biggest strength? He's a good run defender. So they were looking to shore this group up. 2 rookies, Mike Morris and Cameron Young, have been nursing injuries. So who knows how much of an impact they're going to make early, but they played well when they had their opportunities last month. And they're going to be expecting them to contribute once they're able to get on the field. So it's a retooled group. It's a smaller group. That's the one concern that people have. But from what I've seen in training camp, this defensive line looked much better to me. And maybe it's just scheme. These guys are executing it better in year 2 with Clint Hurt, but it looked like a much more physical defensive line than what we saw last year when teams were running up and down the field on it.
Okay. Now let's take a look at that linebacking crew. Let's start on the edge. Used up a second-round pick last year on Mafe, so there's obviously the hope that he's going to take that next step, sooner the better. Spent a second-round draft pick this year on Derek Hall. And then you've got a couple of veterans. Darrell Taylor, another second-round pick, but he hasn't really lived up to that status at this point. Correct me if I'm wrong. And Nwosu, he's really the leader of that bunch at this point, right?
Yeah, they just gave him a 3-year extension worth almost $60 million, and he earned it. Last year, had 9.5 sacks, 13 tackles for loss, a couple forced fumbles, gets his hands on the football with pass breakups. He did a little bit of everything, and he's still a young player. So they were smart. They got him locked up. It created a little bit of cap space here in the presence for them to work with too. So that was a good move. Darrell Taylor has lived up to his billing as a pass rusher. He had 9.5 sacks last year to tie for the team lead, but you are correct in the sense that he has not emerged as the starter that they thought he was going to become, because he has struggled so mightily against the run. He lost his starting job after 3 games last year because it was obvious watching the games. Teams were coming in saying, where's 52 at? We're going to run right at him. And they kept doing it over and over again. And he's been out with a shoulder injury for most of training camp, but Pete Carroll's been saying, hey, he's prioritized that this offseason. He's hoping to be much better against the run than what he has been. The issue's been, while he's been out, boy, Mafe has been putting on a show in training camp in the preseason. Carroll called him the most improved player on the team. I think he's the most improved player on either side of the football. He has been dominant, almost unblockable at times in training camp. So I think he is the starter opposite of Nwosu. Even if Darrell Taylor's back healthy, he's still going to be your situational pass rusher. But I think Mafe is the player to look out for a massive year 2 breakout. He has set himself up for that.
Okay. And then on the inside, and by the way, Hall, has he shown anything yet so far?
There's been flashes. He's been kind of up and down with his play in the preseason, but when he has flashed, he has really flashed. So he's going to be a fun guy to have rotating in early that I think has starter upside down the line. But if you've got Mafe and Nwosu, that might not necessarily happen for him in Seattle. They've got a good situation there with some really talented young guys that they're hoping are going to be able to really elevate their game this year.
Okay, and then on the inside, so Bobby Wagner's back. So, all right, so what happened there? What was the reason he left, and then why is he back? What was going on there?
So this is just my theory. This is just an assumption, not an assumption. It's just what I think happened. But when Seattle traded Russell Wilson, the dead cap hit that they took on there.
Yes.
I think they had no choice. Bobby Wagner was that next big ticket that they had on their thing. And with his age and stuff, they just felt like we have to make this move so we can build the rest of our roster with this huge cap hit. So Pete Carroll did not want to do that. But I think that they ended up in a position where that was the only move they could make. And turn around a year later, we've got cap space now. Bobby, we're not going to be able to give you the huge deal, but we know you want to come back. We want you back. And everything was mended, and here he is. Number 54 is back, and somehow at 33 looks faster than he did 2 years ago at 31 on the practice field. He's just, future Hall of Famer, first ballot guy. He's just so much fun to watch how he does work.
All right, so that's going to be a big re-addition. And then they also signed Devin Bush. And talk about Brooks, because here's another guy similar to Taylor, same class, first and second round. I'm sure they've been kind of linked together as far as, well, they just, even though Brooks had a huge number of tackles last year, so statistically that looks nice, but has he developed into the player that the Seahawks had hoped he would be?
I think he has. The issue there has been that before his ACL injury late last season, he hasn't made the impact plays. He racks up a ton of tackles. Now, 2 years ago, he had 10 tackles for loss. So he has shown that he's capable of being that disruptive impact player. Last year, I think the defensive line really hindered his ability to be able to come up and make those plays in the line of scrimmage in the backfield. But I think he's been better than a lot of people have put the narrative out there for. 2 years ago, he got a couple All-Pro votes, and he was worthy of it. I mean, he racked up a ton of tackles. I'd like to see a little more production from him in coverage. There have been flashes. He's athletic enough to do it. So that's really the next step for him. And somehow, Greg, less than 8 months after having ACL surgery, he was back on the practice field.
Yeah, that's wow.
And he has looked great. I've watched. He looks like he's moving extremely well. Very good chance that he's ready to start in that game in week 1 against the Rams. Just a crazy recovery, but he's put the work in, and he's going into a contract year. So he's got a lot riding on this season. The Seahawks are hoping that means a big season next to Bobby Wagner. And Devin Bush gives him a great insurance policy at linebacker as well.
All right. And then in the secondary, wow, this is where it also could be exciting because we talked last year, of course, about Woolen and what kind of a rookie season he had, and all Seahawks fans I'm sure fell in love with him. And now they go out and they draft Witherspoon. So this has the potential of an excellent. We just talked about the running backs. So you got the potential now of potentially 2 shutdown corners on one team. Adams just has to stay healthy. That's the thing for him. And then, of course, you throw in Diggs, who's always a solid player. So talk about Witherspoon as far as how's he looking so far, and also how is Woolen looking in his second season? Because sometimes rookies, they come back a second year and things are a little bit different. So how are they looking at this point?
So Woolen has only been on the practice field for a few weeks. He had surgery on his knee in May, and it was not a significant injury or anything. It was a minor surgery.
Okay.
But they were very cautious about bringing him back. He looks like he's running well, but that's what I'm going to be curious what he looks like in week 1. He's going to be starting against the Rams, but he didn't play at all in the preseason. He's only gotten a little bit of action in training camp, so they're confident in him. He's such a remarkable athlete that he can get by, even if things aren't completely on schedule. But he's one I'm going to be interested to watch. I think he's going to have another great season because last year he put those numbers up, still being kind of raw at the position.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what he brings to the table. We got to see what he looks like, though, coming back from this injury when he just hasn't had a lot of reps in the field. As for Witherspoon, this has been the most disappointing thing about camp, Greg, is that this rookie class, as exciting as it is, they have not been able to keep guys healthy. Witherspoon has been dealing with a hamstring injury since August 7th. He didn't play in any of the preseason games. Carroll has basically ruled him out for week 1. Now, he didn't definitively do so. Maybe he makes a remarkable comeback this week and he's ready to play. But it sounds like he's not going to be available for them. So when he's been on the field, he's looked great. The few practices he was out there, he was making plays. You could see the physicality. They had to remind him, hey, this is a training camp practice. This guy loves to come out and hit people. But they've got to get him right. If you can get that hamstring right, he is a special talent. Top 5 worthy player unanimous All-American last year. They've just got to get him on the field and keep him out there. So that's the goal right now. As for the safety spots, Adams is not playing week 1 because he just came off the PUP list a week and a half ago. They just don't want to rush him back. He is making great progress. He looks outstanding as far as fluidness, movement, and stuff, but they just want to make sure he's healthy. Again, it's a long season.
Yep.
They're not going to rush a guy back from a torn quad tendon in week 1. So Julian Love was added in free agency. They've got a quality guy that has played a number of positions, played at a high level at both safety spots for the Giants last year as a starter. So they are comfortable. They've got insurance policies at linebacker and safety to be able to withstand, and they have as much depth at those two positions, corner and safety, as any team in the NFL.
Yeah, because Kobe Bryant, who had I
haven't mentioned him, and if Devin Witherspoon's healthy, I don't know where Kobe Bryant plays. They had him working at safety some this training camp. So,
well, Michael Jackson. Now, statistically speaking, I mean, is he the weak link? Not just statistically speaking, but is he? Is he the weak link of the secondary? And does that mean Kobe Bryant? I mean, do they just play different positions, or can Kobe Bryant take time away from Jackson?
Well, honestly, it's been Jackson against Trey Brown. That's been the battle at the other cornerback spot with Witherspoon being hurt. And even when Witherspoon was healthy, he was mostly playing in the nickel spot because they wanted to have that physicality playing inside so they could use him as a blitzer and against the run. I mean, the nickel position, that's not where you hide guys anymore. You want to have talented star players there, especially in the NFC West when you're dealing with the Deebo Samuels and Cooper Kupp in the world. So a lot of fans were upset, like, why are we putting our top 5 pick in the nickel? And I'm saying, why not? He could be a game changer.
Yeah.
But got to get him back healthy. It really is Jackson versus Brown. Jackson struggled in the preseason. He had a really good start to training camp. The big issue with him is he's not a burner, and against faster receivers, he can get beat. And that happened a few times in the preseason. Trey Brown is a little bit more explosive, and he had a better overall preseason. Had an interception, a couple pass breakups, a tackle for loss. He made some mistakes too, but it felt like Trey Brown was the better player of those two. We don't know who's going to start in week 1. Jackson was the starter all of last year. Maybe they lean on that, but Trey Brown certainly looked the part of a starter the last few weeks too. So we'll see what they roll with there, but it's a good problem to have. They've got several starter-capable players there, even if Devin Witherspoon isn't ready for week 1.
Okay, and then the other a couple other guys are new. Kelly from Baltimore, and they drafted a 6th rounder, Jarek Reed. So these guys are kind of more special teamers, that kind of deal?
Yeah, they're going to be looking at those two guys to contribute on kick coverage, punt coverage, and other special teams. I think Jarek Reed, he struggled early in the preseason, first 2 games with missed tackles. He was arguably Seattle's best player in their preseason finale, though. 4.4 speed. He can play both safety spots. He can play nickel corner. He's a hard hitter, really good ball skills. He might be the heir apparent for Quandre Diggs at free safety. They're really excited about his long-term future with this team, but right now he's going to be that late-round pick that's going to be trying to cut his teeth on special teams. And Kelly coming off waivers is going to be the same way. Drake Thomas, the other player they got off waivers from the Raiders, they're going to develop him early on in special teams with the idea that maybe next year he can battle for snaps on defense at linebacker. They think that highly of him. They had him in for a top 30 visit in the pre-draft process. So they were fired up to get him off waivers.
Yeah. Drake is a familiar name. I mean, I remember in college, he really he had a really nice career at NC State.
I think he had 101 tackles, 7.5 sacks, and 19 tackles for loss last year.
Go.
Like he's small, so I think that's why he didn't get drafted. But he's a playmaker, and Pete Carroll was raving about him after they claimed him. So he is a guy, I think, with Brooks, Wagner, and Bush all being free agents next year. That is a name I would keep an eye on for 2024 and beyond, because I think he's got the upside to start in the NFL as an undrafted guy. I think he's got that kind of talent.
Absolutely. And it's great to see kids like that, because the kid Wilson, his linebacker mate, Peyton Wilson, is somebody that has dealt with injuries, but is another just stat stuffing machine that again, you look at him and you're like, yeah, but the injuries, and maybe he's just not going to be an NFL pick. But I think he's going to follow in the footsteps of Drake Thomas. And those are a couple of guys to keep an eye on, especially Drake, like you said, because he's already in the pros. But we'll talk about Wilson next year when he's talked about during the draft process. Okay, so special teams very good, at least a kicking game last year. So everything's looking good again. Both guys are back, so nothing to worry about there, right?
No, and Chris Stahl, the undrafted rookie that they plugged in at long snapper, there were some chemistry issues in OTAs and early in training camp. So that was kind of the discussion among reporters is, are they going to pay for going with an undrafted rookie there? But Stahl really picked things up, and now it looks like the machine that they had when they had Tyler Ott for a number of years as the long snapper. He's been so good, we haven't been talking about him, and that's the best compliment you can get from a long snapper. So they feel really good about that three-headed battery they've got on special teams. And again, credit to Larry Izzo and his staff. They do a phenomenal job, and they were arguably the best special teams unit in the entire NFL last year for a reason. That coaching staff has done a great job. They like the pieces that they've got there.
All right. So, and by the way, if Stoll, as we know, if he does a good job, he'll be around for 15 years. So they don't get rid of long snappers when they find one. So, all right. Well, give me a prediction. What are you feeling about? Because just taking a look at Las Vegas, Seattle's a 5.5-point favorite this week against the Rams without Cooper Kupp. And that Ram depth chart is just kind of they sure paid a price. And I think that's a disrespectful line as far as I'm concerned. 30-1 to win the Super Bowl, 9.5 win total, and they are the second choice, obviously, in the NFC West behind San Francisco at a little over 2-1 to win the division. So what sticks out with any of those odds, any of those futures?
I still would agree the 49ers are the favorite, but I do think Seattle has made up significant ground in that particular race. And if things fall just right for them, if Brock Purdy has a little bit of a sophomore slump, for example, I think Seattle could find a way to climb to the top of the division, especially if their D-line is much improved. I mean, there's some variables there at play, as we always see in the NFL, that impact that bottom line. But I think if this team doesn't win at least 10 games this year, it is a huge disappointment, because I think this is a top 3 offense in the NFL with the receiving weapons, Geno Smith, the running backs, improved offensive line, a really underrated tight end group that might not have the stats to back up the talent that is there. That offense is as good as any in the NFL. And I think the defense is going to take a big step forward. It's just going to depend how much better is the defensive line. Can you get Devin Witherspoon back quickly? Because I think he's a game-changing rookie. I think he's that kind of a talent. You just got to keep him on the field. Can you get Jamal Adams back? That is also going to be crucial for this team. I think Jamal Adams is the real wild card. If we see pre-injury Jamal Adams and he stays healthy, that could be the difference between just sneaking in the playoffs like last year and being a viable contender to make the Super Bowl. He's that kind of a swing player, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's being forgotten. That's the thing. And again, I think this team is being forgotten, all told. And I think they're going to be an underrated team this year. So I agree with you. I like their chances. I picked them to make the playoffs this year. And yeah, I like that 10 win as well. I like the over 9.5 plus 125 too. So that's great. 30-1 to win the Super Bowl. Why not take a stab at that? I like the game this week even. So yeah, I'm not sure about the division, and it's only 2-1, and I wouldn't waste my money on that. But anyway, Corbin, it's always great talking Seattle Seahawks football with you. Great job keeping me updated on what's going on here, and I look forward to talking to you once we get into the season.
Sounds good. Thanks, Greg.
You got it. All right.